Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm so sorry for the delay. As you can imagine that we are experiencing some technical issues to connect with our panelists. My apologies for that. But again, thank you very much to today's webinar entitled West Africa's Education Sector Today, International Education Market Updates, Trends and Developments in Ghana and Nigeria. My name is Tom Wan, and I am the Manager of Market Support and Partnership Development at the BC Council for International Education. And I will be today's moderator. BCCIE is a provincial agency under the BC Ministry of Advanced Education Skills and Training, advancing the interests of international education throughout the entire sector, including K-12, higher education, and the language sector. Thank you for joining us today on what promises to be a great opportunity to learn updates about the education sector from two West African nations, Nigeria and Ghana. Today's webinar is co-hosted by BCCIE and Trade Commissioner Service Global Affairs Canada. Before we get started, and prior to introducing our panelists, it is important I acknowledge at BCCIE, we live and work on the unceded traditional territories of the Coast Salish peoples of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Now on to a few housekeeping items. Today's presentation will be followed by Q&A. Attendees will be muted during the webinar. If you'd like to submit a question during the broadcast, please type them into the question box into the control panel. For the questions to our panelists, we will try to get to this at the end of our discussion. If you require technical assistance during the webinar, please also use the question box, and we will help answer your inquiries. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce our presenters for this morning. I hope that I can pronounce their names correctly. So first, we have Mr. Akokon Odionjani, Trade Commissioner at the High Commission of Canada in Abuja, Nigeria. And we also have Mrs. Kathleen Annie Afior joining us today, and she is the Trade Commissioner and the Political Officer at the High Commission of Canada in Accra, Ghana. Just a little bit of background information about both of them. Akokon, since November 2015, he has served as Trade Commissioner at the Higher Commission of Canada in Abuja, supporting Canadian entities looking to do business in Nigeria. Amongst other sectors, he leads on the education file, providing assistance to Canadian schools looking to Nigeria for recruitment and partnership opportunities. In recent years, Canada's representations in Nigeria have actively sought cross-sectoral partnerships for Canadian schools, identifying leads in the creative industries, information technologies, clean tech, and vocational and technical training, all of which are areas where Canadian expertise can help to address some of Nigeria's pressing needs. Akokon previously worked for the governments of France, Switzerland, and Australia. About Kathleen, she is Trade Commissioner and a Political Officer at Canada's High Commission in Ghana. She has a bachelor's degree in psychology and French from the University of Ghana and the University of Poitiers in southern France, and an MBA in International Trade from the Anhalt University in Germany. Kathleen likes to take long walks on the beach and play tennis. She loves to try some wines and cheese platters on her travels and collect whenever she can. She is a proud mother of a toddler and a 6-year-old. Now, please allow me now to turn over the floor to our first presenter, Akokon. So because of the internet speed issue that you will not be able to see both Akokon or Kathleen on your screen this time, but you will hear their voice, and I will help them to cycle through their slide decks.
Hi, Tom. I hope you can hear me well. It's Okokon. Good afternoon from Abuja, and good morning to all of you in BC. Apologies for not being able to connect as we had hoped. We did a great trial session, and it worked well. And on the day we had hoped everything will go well, and unfortunately we're struggling a bit. Anyway, Tom will be kind enough to walk through the slides that I have prepared. I just want to say major thank you to Tom and to Chelsea for putting this together. I think it was in 2017 that I was in Victoria for the BCCIE conference there, and I thoroughly enjoyed it and met with lots of institutions, some of you who I know had signed up for this session. I know that BC schools have focused on Asia traditionally for quite a while, so I'm incredibly excited that you've shown some interest in West Africa, in Ghana and Nigeria. So Tom, if we just go on to the next slide, I want to explain what I will walk through my presentation today. I'll do a very quick introduction of the Trade Commissioner Service if there's anyone amongst us who doesn't know what we do. And then afterwards, I'll give a quick overview of Nigerian-Canadian relations, especially focusing on the education sector. Then talk a bit about, how COVID-19 has affected Nigeria, especially in the education sector. And then just, provide some updates with the little caveat that we don't work for IRCC, but we're more than happy to provide general information on what's going on in Nigeria. So Tom, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Brilliant. Okay, so the next slide. The Trade Commissioner Service, essentially we work for the federal government of Canada with a mandate to support Canadian companies who are doing business abroad. We're essentially boots on the ground helping to discover opportunities for Canadian companies. Kathleen and I are locally engaged staff, so we are hired from Nigeria, and we work for the High Commission. Hired from the different countries where the Trade Commission Service is. Over 160 cities, including Abuja, Accra, and Lagos. So the difference is that Canadian staff rotate out while we are based here, and that essentially gives us a very huge network. We know we speak the language, we know the culture, we have local contacts, and we do that to support your efforts in recruiting and finding partnerships in the market. Typically, we would give lots of market entry advice. We will identify qualified contacts, and in some cases help to solve problems, some of the problems which I would address in this slide. I really encourage everybody to go on the Trade Commissioner website. There are almost each mission has a market profile, which I think is essential reading if you're looking to attract Nigerians or to do business in Nigeria. So on the next slide, I just thought to share some of the countries where we have a Trade Commissioner in Africa. As you can see, it's 17 countries across the continent. Francophone Africa, Ethiopia, Nigeria, South Africa. In Nigeria, we have offices in Lagos, where the bulk of our team is, and I sit in Abuja. Priority sectors for us are quite evidently education, which takes the bulk of my time, but also clean tech and the creative industries, which I'll talk a little bit about more later on in the presentation. Then on the next slide, just very quick basic information on Nigeria. It's about just under the size of British Columbia, so 930 square kilometers. I believe we still are Africa's largest economy, and unlike BC, we have a huge population, so close to somewhere between 180 and 200 million people. 1 in 4 Africans are Nigerian. Also incredibly interesting is that it's a very youthful population. median age is 18 as opposed to, say, 49 in Italy or 41 in Canada. And tomorrow we celebrate our 60th birthday. So 60 years since Nigeria was gained independence from the Brits. On the next slide, just to demonstrate that it really is a youthful population, and that's interesting for folks looking to do partnerships or to recruit Nigerians. The bulk of the Nigerian population is under 40. And then the average age is about 19 years, so quite a youthful population. So the next slide, just some information on Nigeria-Canada relations. In 2018, the last year for which we have figures, bilateral trade was just under $1 billion. Canadian imports from vehicles, wheat, manufacturing equipment, and aircraft. So Bombardier, Nigeria is Bombardier's largest market in Africa, and Nigeria is the second largest trade partner in Sub-Saharan Africa to Canada. And interesting to us at the Trade Commission Service, Nigeria is Africa's #1 FDI source, foreign direct investment in Canada, and it's 31st overall. We're not quite sure where that goes to, but I think our suspicion is that it's real estate. But we just find that quite interesting because Nigerian foreign direct investment in Canada is 3 times Canadian investment in Nigeria. Anyway, just basic information on trade relations. On the next slide, we're quite excited about the strong growing people-to-people ties between Nigeria and Canada. Over 12,000 Nigerian students. I think that was from 2019, and in 2009, I think the number was under 2,000. So in almost every year there has been double-digit growth. And Nigeria is the top outsourced African country to Canada. And in the top 10 overall, I think it's number 8 or so. Interestingly, over the last 2 to 3 years, there's been more than a doubling of PR visas issued to Nigerians. And Canadians who were originally born in Nigeria, there's also been a doubling of that number just over in the period between 2016 and 2018. So we see that as a source for increased trade, increased business ties, and especially increasing institutional partnerships, which is what my office does quite a bit to promote. And I must mention here that schools from Ontario have really benefited from this and are, signing partnerships to offer Nigerians a chance to earn the OSSD while in Nigeria. On the next slide, just some information on, the trends that we see. I had mentioned we're still incredibly bullish about Nigeria and and the prospects for Canadian businesses in Canadian schools in Nigeria. Increasingly, we are promoting cross-sectorial opportunities, and I'll just explain what that means. So, an educational institution in Canada providing services to a company or an institution in a different sector in Nigeria. The creative industry is an interesting one for us. So, Nigeria has a fairly developed or fairly advanced music and movie industry, actually nicknamed Nollywood. And I think Nollywood is, the second or the third largest producer of movies. But some of them are not necessarily of the quality that, you would expect. So we've been working with Canadian institutions, introducing them to Nigerian companies, trying to improve some of their movie production or cinematography and things like that. A good example is the Vancouver Film School, who we've been supporting. So those kind of cross-sectoral opportunities we're spending quite a bit of time on those. Education, agriculture, education, information technologies. There are Canadian edtech companies that are trying to win market share in Nigeria and getting support from the Trade Commissioner Service. Then just in general, just to give you an idea, we really think that because the government, is not investing, the Nigerian government, is not investing as it should in public education. Our expectation is that the Nigerian middle class will continue to look abroad. That doesn't necessarily mean, more developed markets. So I have a slide where I'll show you where, the top destinations for Nigerians, but they're turning up in Ghana, in Malaysia, in Benin Republic, in Cyprus. So increasingly, people who can afford it will look to study abroad. I'll talk a bit more about devaluation and the currencies, which I think would be very interesting for those of you listening. On the next slide, this is where I'll just talk quite quickly about how COVID-19 is affecting the Nigerian education market. I checked this morning, and there were just under 60,000 cases overall, and something like 10,000 active cases. For a population of 180, 200 million, it doesn't seem that much, to be honest. Even I think there were just 187 new cases, just over 1,000. I'm sorry, not just, but over 1,100 deaths. However, I think everybody acknowledges that Nigeria is just not testing, doing enough tests. So tests are just over 500,000 for a population of 200 million. I think a comparative number in Canada would be 7.2 million. So Ghana, South Africa testing far more than Nigeria is as a percentage of the population. But the impact has been severe, especially in the education sector. Public schools, for example, have been closed since March. Some private schools have launched e-learning platforms and have gone quite far in, I think even gone through the entire term on, providing e-learning services. But for public schools, that just hasn't happened, and I guess there are still significant challenges in that. There's an ongoing strike. University lecturers are striking, so even if the schools were called back now, some of them will not open. And as some of you are probably aware, the examinations were delayed. I think they only wrote them 6 or 7 weeks ago, and the results are expected at the end of October. So the impact has been quite severe on the Nigerian education sector, and that's spilling over. Essentially, the public schools are not accepting new intake for 2020, and that should spill over into next year. So the backlog was already there, and if there's no intake for the year, it just means that in 2020 there'll be significant. 2021, there'll be a significant number of demand for university seats. It's not clear when these institutions will reopen. Initially, we thought it was a state jurisdiction, but in some universities, they're leaning on the federal government to make some of those decisions. Then on the next slide, just a quick overview of how COVID-19 has affected the Nigerian economy. So Nigeria is hugely dependent on its earnings from crude oil. And that market has slowed significantly since March, triggering a decline in Nigeria's GDP of 6%. Inflation is incredibly high, especially food inflation. And since last October, the government took the decision to close the borders, so that has also contributed to high inflation. However, I think what would be most interesting for institutions recruiting Nigerians is not only was there a currency devaluation, but the government has introduced increasing restrictions on access to foreign currency. So we're already having clients of ours who are concerned about, expected delayed tuition payments or the inability to get some of their partners to pay for the services that they have provided. It's a significant concern for us, and it's something that we are monitoring quite keenly. It's almost a replay of what happened in 2016, 2016, where there were significant delays to some of our Canadian institutions getting paid tuition. And even this morning, all over the news, there's still concerns about, restricting access to foreign currency. Then on the next slide, this is where I just try to think about, what impact that would have on student mobility. I still mentioned the currency devaluation as some of the factors that we would consider. And I probably would mention that that's the most important factor. However, for as long as we've known, most Nigerians, the United Kingdom is a top destination for most Nigerians. So the fact that the government of the United Kingdom has introduced post-graduation work permits would affect, mobility it's a game changer to a certain extent. Just a couple of days or probably a week ago, there was reports about visa restrictions that the U.S. government was trying to introduce to students, international students. That would definitely affect, Nigerians who are considering, going to the U.S. And all of this is taking place at a time where, as I mentioned, COVID would induce increased demand for university and international education in general because of this backlog that the Nigerian institutions are facing. If you were going to look into a crystal ball and say, what impact will that have on student mobility? It's quite difficult to say. On the one hand, you would imagine that the currency devaluations would encourage more people, to stay behind or probably go to closer destinations in Africa. However, just the fact that lots of families are looking for education for their kids means that they would continue to look abroad. So it's something that we'll have to pay attention to over the next few months. On the next slide, I'll just see if I can provide a few tips, especially to people who are considering the Nigerian market, for the first time actually, and I suspect that some of you listening would be. I'd really encourage you to take advantage of Trade Commissioner service. We have not just locally engaged staff, but very motivated Canadian-based staff. The City Trade Commissioner, lots of Canadian-based staff were pulled out at the beginning of the lockdown. However, our Senior Trade Commissioner is based here, and we're still working remotely, and we're still supporting Canadian institutions to the best way we can. So I mentioned the market profiles. I really encourage you to look at the Nigerian market profile. We're just at the point of updating it to include some of the impacts of COVID. So over the next few weeks, we'll have a new version. I encourage any new entrants to spend some time paying attention to the market profile. I really encourage you to, work the existing networks. Are there Nigerians already on your campus? Are there Nigerians in the community? Do you have staff who were born in Nigeria? Some of them are obviously still connected to Nigerians back home and can be a source of important leads for you. I really, because of some of the concerns around a high rate of study permit refusals, I encourage everybody who's looking at Nigeria not just to consider recruitment, but also partnerships. And there are some institutions, some of which are based in Ontario, who have done quite well in signing up those partnerships and are, making quite a bit from working with Nigerian high schools to offer, programs that Nigerians studying at home can benefit from. The opportunities in curriculum development, in vocational training. I already talked about, the creative industries, but we're also looking at agriculture or, just the vocational training needs in Nigeria are quite significant. Then obviously younger kids have a higher chance of visa success, and in general, I would encourage you to, focus on them. Sometimes working in partnership with the high schools, agents, to be incredibly honest, are a mixed bag. I've met some incredibly professional agents, but I've also met some that were also quite mediocre. We can help. We can make a few introductions, and sometimes when the introduction comes from us at the Trade Commission Service, they try to behave better. So please send me a message, and then we would see how we can help on that. Take advantage of the strong appeal that Canada has in Nigeria. There's lots of interest in Canada, as I mentioned, not just for those who have achieved PR success, but just in Canada as a study destination. Even us in the Trade Commissioner Service, we're trying to take more advantage of that. On the next slide, I'm coming slowly to the end of my presentation. On the next slide, I just thought to run through some of the ways that we are responding, internally to COVID-19. So we always had the Canada Fair in January. Some of you have visited Abuja or Lagos to attend those events. We're going virtual in October, and it's possible that we don't host it in January next year, just because of the pandemic. So that happens on the 8th of October. I've been working quite a bit with local high schools, just keeping in touch with them and hosting webinars or education promotion events, virtually. So typically, I would like to include a Canadian university or a Canadian, high school, just as giving you direct access to Nigerian families. So please let me know. It's something that I hope to do a lot more of in the next 3 to 4 months. And then when we attend third-party events, most of which will be virtual this year, we'll advertise that on the TCS website. So feel free to sign up if that's of interest. Then on the next slide, this is where I go into the uncomfortable territory of speaking about IRCC. I would repeat the caveat that, we're trade commissioners, Kathleen and I, we don't work for IRCC. However, some of the information here are public knowledge. For example, IRCC is no longer accepting, paper applications. So all all the interest you would have, you have to refer clients to apply online. Initially they were essentially not being processed, but I understand now that lots of people are receiving approval in principle, wherein they can start the fall semester online. And also, of course, some are receiving refusals. So essentially, IRCC is processing the applications. The VACs, the visa application centers in Lagos and Abuja, are open, even though there's some services they're not providing. So at the point, I think they've not started transmitting passports. The travel restrictions, of course, are still in place. There are some exemptions, but to the best of my knowledge, not many Nigerian students have taken advantage of those. As you can imagine, it's still a very fluid situation. So updates on the IRCC website, and please encourage the families who contact you to follow the IRCC, to go on the IRCC website for the latest information. So that's the end of my presentation. I hope you could hear me. I've included my email address there, and I'll be happy to take questions at the end. Thank you very much. Over to you, Tom.
Thank you, Akokon, for your presentation. Thank you very much. And we will see if we have Catherine online. Hello, Catherine, can you hear me?
Hello, Tom. Can you hear me?
Wonderful. Yes, I can hear you clear and loud. Thank you very much. And I will help you to put on your slide deck on my screen and to our audience as well.
Let me know when you're ready, Tom.
Sure. Sounds good. Yes, Kathleen, I have the very first slide of your presentation, so you can start now. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay. So hello to everyone. Thanks for having me and my colleagues from Nigeria. It's an honor to present to you the opportunities and the trends, the developments in Ghana and Nigeria. So I'm just going to start with an overview of the Ghana market. So Ghana, as you know, is located in West Africa, spans a landmass of some 238,000 kilometers squared. Our population is a little over 30 million. And the interesting thing about this is that we have a youthful population, just like in Nigeria. 60% of our population find themselves in the active age range of 15 to 60 years. Ghana is divided into 16 regions. The coastal Greater Accra is the capital, and I entreat you anytime you visit to take advantage of its beautiful beaches, exciting nightlife, and very spicy food. Official language in Ghana is English, but French has quickly become more and more points to consider in policy statements. And here in Ghana, we make a joke about how we're surrounded by Francophone countries. So we have Cote d'Ivoire to the west, we've got Togo to the east, Burkina Faso to the north, and we even go as far as to say that the Gulf of Guinea, which is south of only, and should we need to travel by road or foot anywhere, French becomes an indispensable asset. So I'm going to quickly go on to the economic side of things. So our GDP numbers currently, well, as at 2019, stood at 90 billion Canadian dollars. And I put in Canadian dollars because I acknowledge that it's easier for you to relate. So GDP is at the equivalent of 90 billion Canadian dollars as at last year. Annual GDP growth rate is at 6.5 and inflation is at 7.2%. Ghana is a lower middle income country, but the interesting thing about it is aside its youthful population, it has a rapidly growing middle class, which also supports the fact that there's a greater demand for private education as well as international education. Can we go to the next slide, please?
Yes, Catherine, we are on the next slide.
Okay, so Ghana's educational system, we currently operate a 3633 basic to secondary level education model. What this means is that children in K to 12 will spend 3 years in preschool, 6 years in primary school, another 3 years in junior high school, and 3 years in senior high school. Education at this level is free, compulsory, and sponsored by the government. So, and the academic year starts in September and ends in June. Although COVID has changed this a little bit, and I will get to that on my last slide. So, as I said, education is free and compulsory at the, pre-tertiary level. As of September 2017, senior high school was added to the free education mix. So for now, until university, public education is free for Ghanaian residents in Ghana. There have been a few questions about the quality, especially at the lower levels. There have been questions about lack of accessibility and infrastructure for the levels K to, let's say, grade 9. And this leads most middle class income earners to be able to afford and actually to go for private education at this level. And we all know that these do not come cheap. Private education does not come cheap. On to my next slide, which talks about the post-secondary level. So after grade 12, students are expected to sit and pass the West Africa Secondary School Certificate Examination, which is the WASSCE. And for any student who is looking to study outside of, any Ghanaian student who's looking to study outside of Ghana, this exam may be one of the certificates that they need to prove to you. The grades from this exam will be one of the documents they need to show to get admission. This exam is administered by the West African Examinations Council, and success at this level means that students would move to either get admitted in a regular university, in a technical university, or enter into a career college, which is, for instance, the kind of college teachers would attend, or nurses, or agricultural extension officers will attend. Technical and vocational schools also abound in this area. The education environment in Ghana is slightly different from the one in Canada. So in Ghana, we have the Ministry of Education, which governs the education sector on a national level. The Ghana Education Service is another stakeholder which is responsible for pre-tertiary education. And the West African Examinations Council, WIEC, is the body that conducts terminal pre-tertiary education exams and other professional examinations. The Council of Technical and Vocational Education and Training, COTVET, is the council in charge of technical and vocational education, and we've got a few other agencies in the same sector. I'm going to move on to my next slide, which is international education, and tell you a bit more about international education in Ghana and why you should look at the Ghanaian market. So while Tom is getting ready, I will just zoom right ahead because I do realize that our time is going really fast.
Yes, Catherine,
okay.
We're on the slide about international education now.
Okay. So why Ghana is a market you should consider, and these are also points you would capitalize on when in this market to make your case. So we have a growing economy with an increase in the middle class group. Our population is youthful, 60% between ages 15 and 60 years. There's a significant gap in technical skills in the workforce, which makes it such that professionals are looking to enhance their skills, and nowhere better to look to enhance your skills than in the outside world. There's also a higher demand for world-class education stemming from the fact that public universities in Ghana are doing what we call locally a mass production of graduates. And for these reasons, Ghana is rife with opportunity for international education, and study abroad is a big thing in Ghana. Now, to look at the competitors, just to sort of give you an idea of who is in the market doing similar things you're doing and who is getting more students to visit their country. So the US was one of the top destinations, and so a couple of years ago, for obvious reasons, the UK as well, and quite recently Australia. I won't go into the details of why UK has made it again after dipping in the numbers a couple of years ago, because Okokon has already. Canada is fast becoming the preferred choice due to the sustained efforts of the Trade Commissioner Service and PCS clients like yourself who come into the market and work the market with us. So moving on to the next slide on student mobility. And on this slide, what I'm going to try to do is to let you know what the influences of student mobility in Ghana are, in an effort to help you understand and restructure if need be, or, you know, just to sort of put a cherry on the cake for your recruitment efforts in Ghana. So tuition fees are a big one for student mobility. So a student decides to go to the US or the UK, Australia, Canada, mainly based on the costs involved. So cost of living, tuition fee, availability of scholarships. And Canada is doing well in this space because the pound sterling, the euro, and the dollar are all higher in terms of the exchange rates. If you look at the Ghanaian cedi, one cedi is now, one Canadian dollar is 4 cedis and 9 pesos, as opposed to 5 cedis and a little more for the dollar, 6 cedis for the euro, and 7 cedis for the pound. So the Canadian dollar is doing quite a good job on that front. Also, do not take for granted the alumni advantage. So parents, especially of undergraduate students who know of your institutions or are familiar with the brand of your institution, are more likely to have their children, enroll in these institutions. I recently met a lady who has 5 daughters, and 2 of them went to a particular school in Ontario region, and the other 3 in grade 11, grade 10, and grade 8 were also so very certain that they were going to go to the same school. So do not take for granted the alumni advantage. Should you be in the region and organize any information sessions, try to reach out to the Trade Commissioner Service, try to reach out to any of your alumni who are in town at the time you're visiting, just to have them come meet the students, tell them a little bit about what the experience is on campus. It helps to give them a good story to tell their parents about your institution. So, and of course, work and immigration opportunities is a really big one for Canada, which makes our work easier. On my next slide, I'm going to try and help you focus the opportunities for recruitment in the Ghanaian market. What I've done is on this pictogram, I try to represent the areas of focus for student recruitment per the level of study. So K to 12, you will find that K to 12 is in the low potential region, only because education in Ghana, and you saw from Okokon's student mobility chat, education in Ghana is not that bad. It's actually pretty good at the lower levels. And you would find that most Ghanaian parents at this, when they have younger children, prefer for their children to be around, so to keep an eye on them. And so you would find that more Ghanaians are looking at getting a second degree, or maybe a 3rd degree outside. Now, the way K to 12 at low levels does not in any way mean that the TCS cannot make it happen. What we have done in these cases is to focus on international schools. So for international schools and for a few schools in Ghana that do not have classes all the way to grade 12, what we have done for other Canadian clients is to have to introduce the 2 institutions and have them come up with a memorandum of understanding and to sort of act as a feeder system. So the Ghanaian school acts as a feeder system to the Canadian school. So anything is possible. And once you speak to the Trade Commissioner Service and tell us where you're looking to recruit, we can always help you facilitate introductions, help you work with markets. That's why we're here. We're here for you. So please take advantage of it. Now, if you'd focus on the green portions I have. So virtual education is a big one there. Graduate study, definitely big. Undergraduate study also equally important for recruitment. The other thing we have found to also be making it in this recruitment circle is offshore campuses. As of now, we do not have yet an offshore Canadian curriculum campus. So offshore campuses and curriculum selling is definitely a big one. The US, a few institutions in the US, a few institutions in the UK have established full campuses in Ghana to deliver education programs from their universities. The other model that we've seen a couple of other German and Dutch universities use is to use an already set up campus of an existing university in Ghana to, to deliver their education programs to students in the local market. And here the local market is Ghana and Togo, because Togo is just a driving distance from the capital of Accra. So these are the long-term prospects for continued recruitment and partnership opportunities in the Ghanaian market. On my next slide, after showing you where the opportunities are, I'm going to try and do a similar thing to what Okokon did, help you sort out the market entry tips. So if you'd move to the next slide, the Trade Commissioner Service advises that recruiters visit the market and selected target schools at least twice in a year. Now, we advise also that you pair these visits, or you let them coincide with education fairs that are happening, so that in the same trip you're able to attend local fairs, you're able to talk to parents and teachers, you're able to also do your recruitment activities in that same trip. Some of these education fairs, we have the EduCanada Fair, we have the World Education Fair, we have the MBA Tour. There are also local fairs that recruitment agents organize annually. So if you have, or even if you do not have a responsible recruitment agent in the market, do get in touch and work closely with the Trade Commissioner Service. Our services are free. We have an elaborate network of contacts, as the Okokon said, both in government and in private practice in the education sector. The other thing I wanted to highlight as entering this market is to keep a very active social media presence, especially on Facebook for the Ghana market, and quite recently on Twitter. So working closely with the Trade Commissioner Service, in addition to these tips, will ensure that your brand is out there in the public and people know it and can relate to it, and so they do not have a problem recommending it to students and to parents. On the next slide, Okokon did mention institutional partnership, which is where we're trying to harness more collaboration between institutions. There is a very keen interest among local education institutions to partner with Canadian education institutions in offering dual degrees or in establishing student mobility agreements. And for this, the Trade Commissioner Service avails itself to facilitate and assist our clients in navigating these waters with considerable ease. In terms of potential partnership, the focus is largely on vocational and technical courses. In Ghana, there is great opportunity to help build vocational education programs aimed at producing skilled workers, especially for the extractives industry, so minerals and oil and gas, infrastructure sector, where opportunities are more towards middle-level training in areas such as welding, instrumentation, and mechanical, electrical maintenance, and also very recently in the renewable energy sector. So these are the technical areas that presents potential partnerships and for which we're working with TCS clients to sort of work out partnerships with local education institutions. Now, I'm just going to try and round off here my next slide, which is the last but one slide. I have the COVID reality in Ghana currently. So Ghana has not been doing too bad as a country. Our numbers, as you see on the screen, are currently at 46,000 cases, out of which 530 are active. So we have 45,000 recovery and a little over 300 deaths. So if you're wondering if Ghana is a safe place to travel to, Ghana is definitely a safe and beautiful place to travel to. You'll just have to bear in mind a few restrictions in movement due to the COVID reality. So the airport is open. Arrival is only with a negative COVID-19 test. Now, this negative test has to be taken not more than 48 hours before your arrival. Upon arrival, you will take an instant PCR test at the airport. And once this is done and it's negative, no quarantine is necessary. Land borders remain closed. So, for instance, if you came into Ghana by air and wanted to travel to Togo by road, this would not be possible. You would have to come into Ghana by air and go also into Togo by air. Masks are compulsory and enforced by local law enforcement. And as usual, we do advise that all Canadians who travel out complete the ROCA registrations wherever you go in the world. In terms of schools and the academic calendar in Ghana, schools have been closed since March 16th of this year. Final year students got a chance to go back and finish their exams because that was the only thing that was holding them back. So that side is cleared. For the rest of students, the academic year resumes in January. And this is mainly for public schools. For private and international schools, classes are proceeding online. And because the academic year is ongoing around the world, private schools are also following this trend on online with classes, with virtual classes. So this would bring me to the end of my presentation. I have my contact information, my email. I'm also present on Twitter and on LinkedIn. If you find that you have any questions, I'm available for questions now, although I do realize the time is up. But if you have questions, do send me an email, do send me a message on LinkedIn or on Twitter, and we will find a way to help you. So Tom, this is the end for me. I'm ready for questions.
Thank you very much, Kathleen and Akokon, for your presentations.